reality, I never thought I would see Alan Wake make it to the public. It had an incredibly long development cycle, akin to something Blizzard would do. Luckily, the folks at Remedy finally finished the project, a completely different type of game in comparison to Max Payne. At first glance, it looks like a combination of a mixture of horror games, ranging from Silent Hill to Resident Evil. Yet the real question to ask is whether or not this game reinvigorates the horror genre and lives up to the years of hype that it has created. Alan Wake is a famous writer with a 2-year case of writer's block. He decides to get away from it all and goes on a vacation with his wife to a town named Bright Falls. His vacation quickly turns into a nightmare, with fans nipping at his heels before he even settles in. To top things off, his wife tries to use their vacation together to give him a fresh start on his writing.
I don't want to hear it! God damn it, Alice!
Things only get worse when his wife is taken from their cabin and he wakes up in a completely different area without a clue to where he is. Now Alan must try desperately to find his wife without dying a horrible death to the hordes of monsters called the Taken.
Back to work, boy.
The best thing about Alan Wake is that it is more like a horror series than an actual horror movie. If you're a fan of Twin Peaks, X-Files, Supernatural, etc., you'll feel right at home with the mix of drama and campiness thrown into the storyline. At one point you'll be running away from a bunch of evil shadow dudes, and then at another juncture you'll be listening to a corny joke thrown by Alan or one of his companions.
And his body just disappeared? When was the last time you slept? Are you high? Have you been drinking?
It's especially hard to take things seriously when it sounds like a good amount of the voice acting is purposely bad.
He works on video
Elbow
games.
strike. Ooh, yeah.
It's trash, of course.
It's basically a love it or hate it relationship with Alan Wake. It's like going to see Planet Terror and expecting a serious horror film. Alan Wake uses an unconventional method of defeating enemies. Where the analogy of light and dark comes up a lot, Alan Wake actually puts those methods to use. When light is focused on the creatures, it begins to wear down the shadow around them. This can be boosted by using the left trigger on the controller to make things go considerably faster. After the shadow is cast off by the light, you're free to empty as many bullets into the remaining human to finally defeat it. It's a nice twist on the standard guns work on everything model. That and light is really much more powerful than guns in this game, like the flare, which is used to back creatures off when Alan is cornered, or the flashbang, which can act as a light grenade and decimate whatever it comes into contact with, and the flare gun, which is single-handedly the most powerful weapon in the game. It's pretty much a one-hit kill on the entire surrounding area of bad guys and objects. And what do I mean by objects, you say? Well, later on in the game, Alan will start being attacked by flying pipes, cars, carts, you name it. So I'm pretty sure you've guessed that using guns on these metallic objects won't actually come in handy. This is pretty much where all your high-powered weapons of light come into play. I will say this though, this game is a pretty linear experience. There isn't really that much freedom to look around the areas or branch off onto another path to get to where you need to go. You simply walk in a straight line, which is most of the time on a straight road, and fire on anything that gets in your way. The scenery also gets repetitive very early on in the game. You'll stop looking around at what is going on in the background because most of the time it looks the same. There is little variety here beyond stumbling on a place of interest, and you'll spend a large majority of the game shooting people in all too similar forests and cabins. Now let's take a moment to bask in the spooky atmosphere that Alan Wake creates for us. It's a graphical feast for any horror enthused fan out there. The way the fog creeps through the forest as Alan walks through it, to the way the light bounces off the shadows when hit. The way the wind blows through the trees and leaves branches tumbling in its wake. The way the environment looks at night when compared to the daytime sequences. It almost makes you wonder if they're even in the same place. I don't know how the people of Bright Falls live in a place like this. They even have a lake area that Jason Voorhees would gladly call home. The only real issues I found were in some of the cutscenes. I don't know if it was my Xbox or not, but a majority of the voiceovers weren't in sync.
Nobody move! Get your hands off of my client!
Who are you?
I'm Barry Wheeler, his agent.
That goes the same for the television sequences for the show Night Springs. It seemed like the voices were at least 2 seconds out of sync on some of the earlier movies.
Real experiment, known as a quantum suicide.
Did he say suicide?
Responsiveness can also be an issue, mostly because of how stiff Alan Wake actually moves. It's hard to get him to move out of the way of a sickle coming for his throat when he needs to. It's proven that he cannot do more than one thing at a time, so if he's trying to boost his flashlight and dodge in unison, something has to give. And most of the time it's the dodging part, as he takes an axe to the face. That, and he's kind of a wuss when it comes to running. Make no mistake though, Alan Wake is a thrilling game for those of us who don't mind a little campiness to our stories. The only thing that would really hold Alan Wake back is the feeling of familiarity. Once you've seen your 20th tree fall in the forest, you may start to get the sinking feeling that this game isn't going to open up much. And to tell you the truth, that's the best observation you can have. Alan Wake may not have lived up to the hype wagon that it has driven for years, but it's worthy of a C+ grade for being what Alone in the Dark should have been. And seeing as there are only 6 episodes, people who don't have a lot of time to play games could easily stay entertained long enough to beat it, while hardcore gamers will probably smash it out in a day or two. And there is mention of DLC, so that puts more longevity on this game. Now when is Remedy going to get back to making my Max Payne games?
And only his own echo would wail back as his call. And when he swore to bring back his love by stories he'd create, nightmares shifted in their sleep in the darkness of the lake.